morning, John.
Hey there, how are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, doing pretty well.
So, thanks for agreeing to have a chat to us today. Really appreciate it. I know you must have been swamped with various requests to talk to all sorts of people.
Not really this
Really?
time, actually. It was
Okay.
fun. I joked with Jasmine at the gate. I said, Thank you. Now I'm not going to have to do any podcasts." And I
You
didn't
say that
realize
now.
how right I was. I mean, last year I think I had like 3 dozen
Okay.
podcasts or interviews I did. This year I've talked to Gary Robbins for his YouTube channel, and he was my crew. That
Mhm.
that's been it.
Right. Yeah, because I mean the Jasmine finish was quite sensational. Obviously, you had a ringside seat to that one. But before we get to that, John, if it's okay with you, I'd just like to have a bit of a chat with you about your third Barkley finish. From what I can ascertain, you've been to Frozen Head State 6 times. Is that right?
Uh, this was my seventh.
This is your seventh, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So what would that make it like a 55.6% hit rate, 60% success rate of being there?
You've got that flipped. I think that'd be about my failure rate. Uh,
Well, I don't,
you know,
I'm a glass
if,
half full guy. I reckon that's a success
if,
rate, right?
if I can have another go and finish on my next one, then I'll be at 50%.
Yeah. So I've got to ask you the question. I understand kind of the first couple of years you weren't successful, you went back, you achieved what you wanted to achieve in terms of finishing. What possesses somebody to want to go back into the Barclay Arena, after you've completed it and completed again and again in your case?
It's a great question, and I do very vividly remember the year that I finished in my first finish in 2017. I was with Gary Robbins for most of the race before his heartbreaking near finish.
Hmm.
And we had a discussion on loop four that went something like, "Well, if you finish, will you ever do this again?" And God, no, of course not. That would be why
Why would you?
would we ever do that? And we were both quite adamant on that. So I took 1 year off. I didn't do it the following year. I crewed him. And then I wanted to just go back and see what it was like, coming at it from a different angle with a
Mhm.
different mindset, um, different set of goals, and it didn't go well for me. After 2 loops, I was in the lead after 2 loops, and I just said, nope, I'm done. I know what the later loops will bring, and I don't feel like doing that. I
Okay.
didn't have the motivation and the mindset for it. Um, but then I didn't want to go out like that, so I went back again. I unfortunately I lost my pages and just finished a fun run that year.
Was that
And
2022?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it was this past year that really just my entire approach and mindset and goals for the race changed. I was genuinely out there having fun. I was enjoying the adventure, getting to explore areas that I otherwise can't, even though
Hmm.
it's right next to my home. Welcome friends from all over the world out there and show them around. And to have this goal really of just seeing what I could achieve, of
Hmm.
seeing if I could exhibit that control over my own mind and body to get out there and finish where really I don't have to have a specific achievement or a specific accolade that I'm searching for. It's a matter of my just being able to will myself to do that. That I'm doing it because I decided to do that, and that's sufficient. And when you get in those really mental low points,
Hmm.
where it's difficult to keep yourself going, that's a pretty valuable thing to have, to not have to waste time kind of convincing yourself of doing something
Hmm.
that my all I needed to tell myself was, okay, when I was coherent, a week ago, I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
So now that I'm out of my mind, I'm just going to rely on that version of me
Hmm.
and keep going.
Yeah. Is there something that takes the pressure off knowing that you can do it? You know, you've
There
obviously,
definitely is,
yeah.
and also, not having the the value of having the first finish is far more
Hmm.
than later finishes, and so that's both a positive and a negative. It's less motivation.
Hmm.
You have to replace that motivation with something else. You have to pull from somewhere else. But it's also much less pressure and much less stress. Those early years, I was quite obsessive with Barkley. I'll say to an unhealthy extent in
Right.
terms of my training, the time it took, the amount of focus I placed on it, the amount of pressure I put on myself for it. Whereas the past few years, again, like I'm genuinely just out there having fun, and
Hmm.
I'll continue on as long as I can continue on. And if I touch the gate 5 times, then I touch the gate 5 times.
Right. It's not often you hear the word fun and Barclays in the same sentence. So, I mean, that would indicate that there's a significant kind of mind shift from that initial those initial excursions when you were going out to get the finish, and then kind of going and immersing yourself in the experience for different motivations. And what I was hearing from you, really kind of reading between the lines there, was that actually the thing you're proving is to yourself more than anything else about your capacity to to persevere when when things get tough. And when we've done long races, I can recognize the dark times and kind of what it's required to push yourself to the end. So, in terms of that self-motivation and kind of, proving to yourself that, that you can persevere, to use, one of your phrases you eloquently spoke about when you're talking about Jasmine via your Facebook page. But, what setting Barkley aside, what are the next challenges that you would look at that would bring with you um, the same level of achievement or the same level of recognition that you seek?
Well, that's another thing I wrestled with after my first finish was, that had been my focus for so long. I thought, okay, well, what can I do now
Hmm.
that equally motivate me? And it took a while to find that. I've arrived at the point now where when I consider anything that I want to do, there are two main criteria. There's one, um, if I don't achieve the outcome that I'm searching for, am I still going to look at it and say, "Well, that was fun. I'm glad I did that. That was a great experience." And like Tour de Géant last year, I didn't have the outcome I looked at, but I made it across the finish line, and I looked back and said, "Man, I'm glad I did that. That was just that was a great experience. So glad I didn't quit or drop out." And so that's one thing. Am I going to actually enjoy the process regardless of the outcome? And the other is it going to put me at that edge where I am truly going to grow and learn?
Hmm.
It's at the end of the day, we're running around the woods collecting book pages. It's a pretty arbitrary challenge, not really meaningful at all in the grand scheme of life.
Hmm.
But it's through doing that, we're put in a position where we are face to face with our weaknesses, with our strengths, and learn a lot about how we deal with tough situations, how we can make it through those.
Hmm.
And it's really experiencing those low points. It's a bit of a we look at those low points from one perspective and say, well, why would you ever continue through that? Like, how do you make it through that? Whereas the other way of looking at it is those are exactly the reason that we're doing
Hmm.
this. We're doing these things in order to encounter those extremely challenging, uncomfortable low points, because that's where the growth and the learning occurs.
Yeah.
And those are the things that we can take away from the experience and apply to be better at other areas of life that
Mhm.
aren't so arbitrary.
Yeah. I mean, it's life affirming stuff, isn't it? I mean, I obviously wouldn't be on a start line for Barkley ever, but some of the longest stuff that I've done, I certainly have finished those races, not necessarily in one piece, but I think generally a better person than the person that started, for all sorts of reasons, but not least of which you spend a lot of time in your own head and you have a lot of time to think about things and gain some perspective about what's important and perhaps what's less important and how you handle yourself when faced with extreme pressure. I
Yeah.
mean, perseverance and resilience, John, is something that you've demonstrated on a number of occasions, right? The same year that you won the spine, you decided to go back and try and do it a bit quicker, and then Damo beat you, and then you decided to go back and do it again.
Yep. So we had a bit of a back and forth on the Pennine Way in the summer,
Mhm.
supported, where it's, conditions are a bit nicer than they are in January doing the
Yeah.
spine. But that was another, great example of we're out there kind of pushing each other and seeing what's possible, not only for ourselves, but collectively,
Mhm.
how high we can go. I never would have uh, run it as fast as I did the second time if Damien hadn't have gone out there and shown me what could be done.
Yeah. And obviously you've got the Wainwright's record as well after a kind of attempt that didn't work out for you. Coming back to Damo though, I mean, how important is it for kind of counterparts, or how important are counterparts to you when you are, either doing solo challenges or you're on events like Barclays? Because you mentioned Damo quite fondly in another one of the posts that I saw you put up there. What does that bring to the table for you?
Well, there's a lot of support there, all around, and whether it's Damien or Jasmine or the massive support crews that I had for doing some of these crazy efforts in the UK. But there's also just the kind of resetting in our mind of what's possible, and that's a lot of what Barkley itself does is we put these challenges and these goals out there that everyone says, oh, that can't be done. There's no way.
Mhm.
And then someone goes out there and does it. And it completely resets what everyone views as possible. So while I might be internally motivated in terms of pursuing these challenges and going after these goals and what I take away from the experiences, uh, someone else going out there and doing something huge. I mean, look at Jack Scott doing the spine this year.
Wow.
Just
Yeah.
crushed the record in a time that I don't think anyone really thought was possible.
Mhm.
And so, whereas my motivation might not be to directly to beat someone else in most of these things, it's a complete reframing in my mind of what can I do.
Mhm.
This clearly is possible. Someone just did it. So I can push myself farther. I can do more. And that's across the whole spectrum of, pursuing records to just getting started
Mhm.
doing these things. That's something that uh, drives us all to achieve more
Yeah.
and grow more through these experiences.
Yeah. And understand what can be done. Yeah, both
Yep.
personally and with others. So let's get back to Barkley then. So your third finish, congratulations. Um, how did this differ from other Barclays, both successful and less successful that you've been involved with?
Well, we had great weather and a great starting time again,
Mm.
which is very similar to last year. These past 2 years have been the best conditions that I've seen. Uh, One additional big change, or I guess not change, but difference this year is we just had such a strong group of veterans
Mm.
out there. So it was really just the stars aligned, and we had good conditions, good start times, and a very strong group that could work together to overcome some of the early challenges of
Mm.
a course like this. And what you see a lot in Barkley is you kind of have this buildup of a pipeline of people who have gone out there, they've put in the effort, they've learned, they've improved, people like Jasmine, Greg Hamilton, who have, been there and come up short multiple times. And so you have this kind of this backlog of people who are just there. They're just at the edge of being able to finish. And then the right year comes along where we have the right conditions and the right group, and boom, we have all those people get over the line and get that finish. And so we had most of the race, we were split into 2 league groups this year, and one of them had me, one of them had Jared Campbell. Between us, we have over a quarter of all Barkley finishes ever, so a bit of experience out there, which helps. But then also the others, Jared and I definitely mess up and make mistakes. It's so easy out there to let your mind slip and just carelessly go the wrong way a bit. And people out there like Jasmine and Greg who know what they're doing, who are extremely good navigators and have learned the course. All of these people working together prevents those disastrous mistakes. And while we made a bunch of small mistakes this year, we never had the big one. We never had that one massive mistake that ruins a race.
Right. And that kind of grouping lasted for what, 2 loops, 3 loops?
Really 4.
Right. Okay.
Jasmine was with us for most of the first 3 loops, and then she was with Jared and Greg for the 4th loop. Whereas it was me, Ihor, and Damien together on the 4th loop. So there was a bit of shifting back and forth amongst the 6 or 7 of us that were up front, but in one way or another, I don't think anyone was alone very much on those first 4 loops.
Yeah, and obviously on the 5th you go your separate ways anyway.
Yeah, and this was the first time ever that actually we could have worked together on the 5th loop, because there were so many people starting the 5th loop at once. Like Greg and I both started anti-clockwise at the same time. We didn't work together on the 5th loop, and I don't think anyone could, but that was actually a possibility this year.
Right. Okay. We had a bit of an email conversation prior to this interview, and I kind of floated something around kind of obviously Jasmine's achievement was phenomenal. I chatted to Jasmine last week, and it was just incredible to hear her story and how that unfolded. Like I say, 2 previous Barkley visits, kind of nailed it on the 3rd. But we kind of I muted the point around kind of is it an issue of proportionality in terms of fewer females go to Barclays, the Barkley Marathons, and therefore proportionately is it proportionate her finish? And you seem to think that actually the sample number was too small for that. But then you went on to discuss and mention the Barkley elite runner athlete being different from a typical elite runner. I just wonder if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, of course. And in general, the sample size is too small across the board. When you look at the number of people that have finished Barkley, the number of people that are in each year, people try to draw conclusions about the best training approach and other aspects that they're looking at the finishers, and it's just everyone is an outlier. All the finishers
Too many
are
variables.
outliers, so you can't draw conclusions about the distribution from that. In terms of Barkley Elite, it's a race that tests you on so many skills and in so many different ways, and it will find your weakness and it will hit you there, whether you're a great navigator but not a strong runner, or you're a fast runner but not a great navigator. I mean, no one can finish just by being fast, and no one can finish just by being a good navigator. And really, no one can finish just by being fast and being a good navigator. You've also got to have the mental fortitude. You've got to know how to deal with unexpected challenges as they come up, how to make good loop transitions. I mean, there's just so many different things that you have to be strong at. And so you know, that's what I really mean in terms of Barkley elite. They may not be the fastest, they may not be the best navigator, but they're great at all of them.
Hmm.
Uh, and so someone that is, you know, one of the best ultra runners in the world and is going to go out and crush a race like Western States or UTMB, they might not fare very well at Barkley. And we have had people like that do Barkley,
Yeah.
and they've come up short. And so that's really the difference is
Hmm.
having these added skills that you don't necessarily need in a more traditional ultra.
Yeah. Because your professional background, setting aside the athlete stuff, you are you a systems engineer? Do you look at machine learning and work in
Yeah,
IT? Is that right?
I'm a data scientist,
Data
and
scientist.
so a lot of this, you know, I kind of view Barkley as a constrained optimization problem,
Hmm.
where I'm trying to do the best I can given the constraints of the race, given the constraints of my own life, and it's quite the complex problem and a lot of variables to
Yeah.
try to deal with, and that's part of the fun of it is that it's really never the exact same race. It's a new experience out there every time, and you can really never walk away from it saying you had the perfect race. There's always something that you feel, you know, I could have done that a bit better. Like I said,
Mhm.
we made quite a few small mistakes this year that could have gone better. You know, I can question my sweep strategy like I can almost after almost any of these things. So I really view that as part of the fun is trying to solve the complexity of it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that one of the common denominators when I'm speaking to any athlete of your level is not just the resilience and the motivation to get things done, but actually the ability to problem solve on the hoof in a dynamic situation under extreme pressure. And it's not, I haven't done, this is not a scientific. So I know from a data analysis point of view, and as a data analyst, you're going to blow your mind at this. This is no hard and fast research, but most people that I speak to who are running at the level that you are tend to have lines of work that require high levels of analytical skills, tend to be highly qualified, highly diligent individuals in terms of how they got into their careers in the first place and translate that into the sport, into our sport. Um,
That's that's been very true at Barkley. When
mm,
you look at the finishers, a lot of them have high level degrees in science and engineering and mathematics. It's not universal. It's not
mm,
across the board, but it's definitely again one of those skill sets that it helps to be really good at. And the better you are at any individual skill, you have a little bit of a buffer
yeah.
uh, in the others where you can have a shortcoming or make a mistake.
So you mentioned kind of when you're problem solving and kind of getting to the end and wondering what could be done better. What would a perfect Barkley race look like for you in that case?
Well, no navigation mistakes for one.
Mm,
You know, I did make a list and add them up after the race. I think on the first four loops, again, there were a lot of small mistakes that I think probably added up to about an hour of time.
mhm.
Uh, and you know that sounds like a lot, but to put that in perspective, the year of my first finish, we had a early like 1:42 a.m. start in dense fog. Gary Robbins and we lost more time than that before we were halfway around the first loop.
Right.
It was disastrous.
Okay.
So you know, but you can always say, well, what if you had a perfect navigation and no mistakes? And
Mhm.
so, I mean, there were that on the first four loops. There was probably close to another hour for me on the last loop
Right.
between a few mistakes I made and lying down to take some quick naps
Mhm.
on the trail. And that's another thing. Like what if I could make it through without any sleep, like Ihor and many others have done? I actually think I may have been the only one that slept this year.
Mhm.
I think Jasmine may have slept for 2 or 3 minutes sitting
I
in a
think she
chair
quoted
at
3 minutes, but
the
wasn't too sure whether she slept or just had
yeah,
her eyes closed. So, yeah.
yeah. So there's what if I could go without sleep?
Mhm.
Or what if I could just move a little bit faster? It's very difficult to say. Well, was I actually pushing myself as hard as I possibly could for every minute of those 60 hours? And so there are always marginal gains to be had. And in a race that long, you even look at it like, we had 75 book pages to collect this year.
Mhm.
What if I were just, 12 seconds faster collecting each book page? That's
Mhm.
15 minutes right there.
Yeah.
Those tiny things add up, and especially you look at someone like Jasmine's finish this year with just 99 seconds to spare. I mean, basically, if she had been 1.5 seconds slower per hour, she wouldn't have finished.
You missed it.
That's just that's unbelievable to
Mhm.
think about. So those tiny little things always add up, and you can always try to find those marginal gains. But the reality of something this complex, is that maybe if you could try it a million times, you get it perfect.
Maybe.
Um, but with the number of attempts that we have, the next time maybe you get all of those things that you messed up perfect, but
Mhm.
then you mess up something else. And,
Yeah.
and so
It's the sleep one's an interesting one, isn't it? Because the trade-off is obviously the less sleep you get, the more prone potentially you are to making mistakes.
yep.
So yeah, I'm sure there is a sweet spot. I wouldn't have a clue what it is, but that would be something that I guess you just have to test. And when
Yeah.
the body needs to sleep, it needs to sleep, right? So.
And I've really, especially these past couple of years, I've really taken more of a risk averse approach where
Mhm.
if I know I have the time, if I know that I'm on schedule to finish, I'm doing everything that I can to prevent disaster. Where maybe I could try to push on without any sleep, or rush things a bit more, and that gives me the possibility of finishing faster. But maybe I could have beaten Ehor, gotten back
Mhm.
before him this year. It's very difficult to race when you're going opposite directions on the loop, but
Yeah.
maybe I could have done that. But if I had tried to do that, maybe I would have fallen asleep randomly somewhere
Mhm.
or ventured off the wrong side of a mountain and not finished at all.
Well, if you go back, you have to give it a try, won't you, and see what different strategy works for you this time out.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's part of the fun. It's a
Mhm.
bit of a different race every time.
So how was it being there for the first female finisher as you saw Jasmine coming up the hill?
It,
Was it one of your daughters that spotted her first? Was that right?
my oldest son
It was your
spotted
oldest
her
son, was it?
first,
Okay.
yeah, and everyone was kind of like, I mean, at that point, everyone had pretty much accepted that she wasn't going to make it back in time.
Hmm.
And so when my son got excited and started shouting, most people said, "Oh, it's just some kid down there running around." But then there she came a minute later, and it was incredible to be able to see that, and I know what she has put into this, and it couldn't have that achievement couldn't have gone to a better person. So
Hmm.
it was incredible to be able to witness that firsthand, to be there, and it's I'd written before many years ago about how a woman can finish Barkley.
Hmm.
But like I said, we're dealing with very small sample sizes, so even if one can doesn't mean one will.
Hmm.
So to actually be able to see that, and for my daughters to be able to be there and see that was that was amazing for sure. I don't know that I don't think I'll ever personally witness anything in sports as great as that moment.
No, no, it's certainly going to go down in history as one of the all-time kind of pivotal moments, and I guess in our sport, but probably in any sport actually, in terms of what can be done you know, when you're pushing. It was
Yeah,
incredible to win.
and there were so many spots during the race that it would have been so easy for her to say, "Oh, well, I can't finish now. Maybe next time." And you know, I think a lot of people watching the race unfold, you know, myself included, there were a number of times where I said, "Oh, Jasmine's slipping. She's probably not gonna be able to finish this year. That's unfortunate." And then she continued on. She persevered through all of those low points, and pushed past the possible every time.
And what about our other fellow Brit, the chap who affectionately refers to you as the Tea Dodger, Damo? If he goes back, what does he need to do?
Well, you know, I had this discussion with him a bit. I think that sleep deprivation hits us a bit differently. For me, it's almost like I'm going under general anesthesia. Like I just flat out can't keep my eyes open.
Right.
Whereas for him, I think he can keep his eyes open, but his mind starts to go, and
Okay.
it's very prone to making mistakes. So I think a combination for him of in really studying the course now that he's been out there a number of times, going back in his head and over those mental notes and really drilling that into himself, and how to navigate it. But then also, I think it might be beneficial if he makes it around the first 3 or 4 loops in time to get a quick power nap before heading out there on his own to navigate that final loop.
All right, good stuff. Well, I'm sure he took that under advisement. I have no doubt. No, well, I don't know him very well, but obviously I've chatted to him a few times, and it will be interesting to see his approach when he, no doubt, will apply next time and write his essay and see what the response is. So
yeah, it'll I'm sure he'll get another shot.
I'm sure he will. What's next for you then, John?
Well, summer's still a bit up in the air. Have a few things that I might do. Headed back to Tour de Gent in September.
Okay. I think
So
Jasmine's going again this year as well. So
yeah, and Damien as well. So looking to I'm actually avoiding having a huge summer effort, multi-day summer effort this year, with the hope that that will leave me in a better spot for Tour de Gent, where I've not yet had a performance that I'm happy with. So focusing on trying to get that this year.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. I might head over to Cormair actually. So from there, I'll drop you a line and buy you a coffee or something. I'll buy Damo tea, but I'll buy you a coffee.
Oh, well, thank you. I actually, though, I go on a caffeine fast before these races so that when I need it, in those bad moments, it hits me as hard as possible. Maybe after the race, though. I'll certainly need one after the race.
Okay, well, I'll look you up. John, I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you ever so much. I really appreciate you talking to us today. Good luck with whatever lies ahead. Keeping an eye out for you on Tour de Gent, like I say, and all the best to the family. Take care.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Brilliant. Thank you. Bye-bye.